Hey, first grade, welcome back to reading. Our target today is still I can retell a story using story elements. Yesterday, we kind of reviewed reading a story and then retelling it using our characters. That's who the story is about. The setting, that's where and when is the story, and telling about the beginning, middle, end, making sure to include the problem and the solution. The problem, what went wrong, what's going on, the solution, how did they solve it, how did they try to solve it or fix their problem. Today, we have a new story that we are going to read and practice retelling the story using story elements. Today, our book is called Pigsty. Oh, and I remember when I was growing up, this was one of my favorite books. So we are going to read this and then practice retelling it with these story elements. Pigsty by Mark Teague. Oh my goodness. Have you ever heard the word pigsty before? If you have, you might know what this book's going to be about. Monday afternoon, Wendell Fultz's mother told him to clean his room. "It's turning into a pigsty," she said. Wendell went upstairs. Much to his surprise, a large pig was sitting on his bed. "Pardon me," said Wendell. He shoved some toys into his closet. But the pig didn't seem to mind the mess. And Wendell found that he didn't mind the pig either. He decided to take a break. When Wendell's mother came to look at his room, the pig was hiding. But the mess was still there. She threw up her hands. "Okay, Wendell," she said, "if you want to live in a pigsty, that's up to you." Wendell could hardly believe his luck. Now I can live however I want. He didn't even worry when he came home on Tuesday and found a second pig in his room. The mess had grown a bit worse, but he was able to jam most of it under his bed. "Pigs are all right," he said, "as long as it's only one or two." In fact, they had a wonderful time. They played Monopoly until late each night and left the pieces lying all over the floor. They had paper airplane wars and pillow fights. The bed became a trampoline. Then 2 more pigs showed up. The mess just grew and grew. That night, when Wendell went to bed, the pigs were lying everywhere. They rolled up in his blankets and hogged his pillows, too. Wendell told himself he didn't mind, but then he found hoof prints on one of his comic books. And Friday, when he got home from school, he saw that somebody had been sitting on his basketball, and his baseball cards were chewed. "That does it," said Wendell. "I've had enough." He ran downstairs to tell his mother. "Sorry," she said, "but your room is your responsibility." She handed him a broom. Wendell started to complain. The mess was too huge. But suddenly, he remembered a saying he'd heard, that many hooves make light work. He marched upstairs and organized a cleaning crew. They swept and scoured, polished and scrubbed. Later that afternoon, Wendell inspected his room and pronounced it clean. In fact, it was a bit too clean from a pig's point of view. So while Wendell inspected, the pigs prepared to go home. One of them made a phone call, and a farm truck came to pick them up. They hugged and grunted and oinked. Goodbye. From that day on, Wendell kept his room clean. Except for those nights when his friends came by to play Monopoly. The end. Okay, wow, that was a great story. I think it's time to retell it because you know what? As much as I love this story, Miss Lestigo has never heard it. So I need to think for a second, what are these important story elements? So when I tell her about this story, I don't leave anything important out because she's never read it and she doesn't have this book. So I'm going to retell it to her and she is She's just going to get all the important details. That way she knows, oh, wow, Miss Lime, that is a good book. Here is the same graphic organizer that we used yesterday. I'm going to start, of course, by putting my name on the top and writing down what book I read. And that's important because now you can see we have the same paper that we're using. So this is going to help me keep track of which book am I retelling. And my book is Pigsty. Let me think, the setting. Well, the whole time they were in the boy's bedroom, right? So they were at his house in the bedroom. So I'm going to say, I'm going to use my little bullet point, at home in his bedroom. Well, whose bedroom? Who is this story all about? Do you remember what my character's name was? Yeah, Wendell. So I'm going to add him right here. Wendell. And of course, I know the other characters in my book were the pigs. Oh, that's so funny. Yeah, and I can add his mom. His mom was a character. She was only in the book a little bit. So this setting, my book took place at home, and it was pretty much in his bedroom the whole time. It told me that he was leaving and coming back, like when he was going to school, but we never really went to school with him in the story, so I just know that this story was in his bedroom. And I know that my main character was Wendell, the pigs, and his mom was there a little bit. Now, I need to tell you about the beginning. What was happening in the beginning of the story? Well, Wendell's room was really messy, and his mom told him to clean it up, but he wouldn't, and he found a pig in there. That sounds like a pretty big problem to me, right? Let me add that to the beginning. So I wrote, Wendell's mom told him to clean his room. He left it a mess, and a pig came to live with him. That pretty much sums up just the very beginning part of my story. It sets the stage. It tells me, hey, this is what my story is going to all be about. Now, in the middle is where I need to start telling you more. Hey, what else is happening? Did he try to fix his problem? Did his problem get worse? What other events are taking place? Well, I remember in my story, he didn't mind it, and he liked having a pig roommate, and they played games, and in fact, more pigs came. But they started destroying some of his stuff. Yeah, that's what was happening in the middle. I'm going to add that to this box. Now remember, the middle is where the most stuff happens. So it's really hard to fit all of those important details in that middle box, but we're just going to try our best. I said Wendell liked the pig and they played games. More pigs came and some of his stuff got destroyed. Wendell didn't like the mess anymore. Because that sums up what is happening throughout most of the book. This is that middle part of the book, and it takes up most of the book. Okay, now I need to talk about the end. How did he solve his problem? How did he solve his problem of his room was a mess and pigs started showing up and now they're ruining his stuff? Well, he got tired of it and he started cleaning his room, but he made the pigs help him clean his room. That's kind of funny, right? Well, then it got way too clean, so the pigs decided to leave. But they still came over every so often to play games with him. So I wrote, Wendell got stuff to clean his room. He made the pigs help. When it was clean, they left. The pigs still come to play games sometimes. So I told you all the important events. I used my story elements, my setting, my characters, and when I was telling you my beginning, middle, end, I made sure to include details about the problem and the solution and what was going on. So now I'm ready to go tell Miss Lestigo all about this book. And she's never read it before, but now this is going to tell her all the important parts, and it's going to be like she has read the book. It's your turn. On Seesaw, you're going to have a graphic organizer exactly like the one yesterday and like Miss Lime did for you to fill out. But you are not going to fill it out on Pigsty because I just did that one. Instead, your teacher has assigned a new book on reading A to Z. That's right, you had a book yesterday, and you're going to have a book today. Your job is to read that book. It's on your reading level, so you should do your best to read it by yourself. Then when you're done, you can start filling in your graphic organizer, telling us about the setting, the characters, what was happening in the beginning, middle, end. It's really helpful if you pretend like you're going to tell somebody, like I was pretending I was going to tell Miss Lestico about this book who's never read your book before. That'll help remind you to include as many important specific details as possible. And of course, when you're all done, make sure you push that green check mark.